When you think of ancient Rome, what comes to mind? Probably legions, right? Aqueducts, gladiators. But what about their factories? Today on The Explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on the massive industrial engine that powered ancient Rome. And you'll see how its story of incredible innovation and brutal exploitation has some pretty surprising echoes in our own tech-driven world.
So let's just dive right in with a question that honestly has bugged historians for ages. With all their engineering genius, and I mean, these people were brilliant, why didn't ancient Rome have an industrial revolution like we saw in 18th century England? It just feels like it should have happened, right? A real paradox.
For a long, long time, the main theory, the one everyone kind of went with, was this thing called the Finley thesis. It was put forward by a historian named Moses Finley, and his argument was pretty simple, really. He said that because Rome's economy ran on the cheap labor of millions of enslaved people, there was just no reason to invent labor-saving machines. I mean, why bother when you have an endless supply of human labor? That idea of technological stagnation really stuck.
But here's the thing. What if that whole story is just, well, wrong? Or at least way too simple? Because recent discoveries are painting a totally different picture, a much more complex and dynamic one that suggests the Roman world was anything but stagnant. So let's look at the evidence. Okay, first up, mines. The sheer scale of Roman industry is it's mind-blowing. And the evidence we have from their mining operations completely challenges that old idea of a technologically backward economy. I mean, check this out. Roman mining was so huge, so incredibly productive, that their output of metals like gold and silver wasn't matched again for over 1,000 years. Let that sink in. We're talking about a level of production you don't see again until the modern industrial era.
And we're not talking about a couple of guys with pickaxes here. This was a massive, empire-wide industrial machine. Think about it, a coordinated operation stretching all the way from Spain and Britain over to the Balkans and into modern-day Turkey. This was a pan-European effort.
Okay, you want a number to wrap your head around this? 1 million tons. That's the estimated weight of the slag heaps, the waste rock from smelting, at just one mining area in the Balkans called Mount Kazmas. 1 million tons from just one spot. It's an incredible amount of material.
And the way they did it was just pure engineering genius. They used this incredible method called hydraulic mining. At places like Las Medulas in Spain, they literally re-engineered the whole landscape. We're talking about building aqueducts over 100 kilometers long just to store up massive amounts of water in reservoirs. And then they'd unleash it all at once to literally blast the side of a mountain away to get to the golden side. It's just, wow.
Now, this kind of industrial thinking wasn't just for the big stuff like mining. You can see the exact same pattern of innovation in something you might find in any Roman kitchen: pottery.
And we're not talking about just any old pot here. This stuff, Terra Sigillata, with that famous red gloss, it was basically the brand name of its day. It was mass-produced, standardized, and shipped everywhere. And if you track how it was made over time, you see this amazing story of technological improvement.
So, get this. The original workshops were in Italy, but about a century later, production shifts to Gaul. And the potters there, they didn't just copy the old recipe. Nope, they improved it. They figured out how to fire their kilns at a much higher temperature, which created this tougher, more durable, chip-resistant coating. Why? Because the market was demanding it for more widespread, everyday use.
And that's the key right there. This shows clear-cut technological progress. They're actively making a better, tougher product to meet consumer demand. That is the exact opposite of stagnation. Okay, so if they're innovating in mines and pottery, that brings us right back to the elephant in the room: slavery. If that old theory is on shaky ground, what was the real relationship here? It seems we've got to look at this through a new lens, one that's a bit more complicated than just simple economics. You know, that old Finley thesis, and honestly, even some Roman writers themselves, they talked about enslaved people as if they were just tools, living instruments, interchangeable with a hammer or a shovel. It's a completely dehumanizing perspective. But that's just not the whole story, not even close. Modern scholarship shows us something so much more complex and so much more human. This quote here really gets to the heart of it. For enslaved people, technology was a part of their lives in so many ways. It was oppression, sure, but also power, pride, expertise, and even resistance. Exactly, it was a total double-edged sword. On one hand, technology was absolutely a tool of exploitation, but on the other, it could be a source of real agency.
You had enslaved people bringing specialized skills with them from all corners of the empire. For some, mastering a technology or a craft was a way to build an identity, to take some pride in their expertise, and maybe, just maybe, gain a little bit of social standing within a truly brutal system.
So, where does that leave us? Let's try and pull all these threads together. What's the new way to think about Rome and its technology?
You know, maybe for all these years, we've just been asking the wrong question. It's not why were the Romans so backward. The better question, the more interesting one, is how did their unique world, including the pervasive and brutal system of slavery, shape the way their technology developed? It was a different path, not necessarily a lesser one.
And this right here is the big takeaway. The Roman example proves something vital. You can have a society that is incredibly innovative, technologically sophisticated, and at the exact same time be built on the back of a deeply exploitative labor system. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. That's a really important and kind of chilling thing to realize.
And listen, this isn't just some dusty old history lesson. It forces us to take a hard look in the mirror at our own world and our own relationship with technology, labor, and automation.
I mean, think about it. As we're dealing with AI, automation, the gig economy, understanding Rome helps us see how technology and labor have always been tangled together. From the invisible human workers that make our automated services run so smoothly to AI algorithms that can accidentally build in our own biases, the line between the human and the machine is getting blurrier all the time. And the Roman story leaves us with one final, crucial question to chew on. Who really benefits when that line gets blurred, and who's the one that ultimately pays the price?